We want to introduce you to author Justine Bateman. Here's her book. It's called Fame, The Hijacking of Reality. Ms. Bateman, reading through this book, it seemed like it was a relatively painful experience to write it. Is that a fact?
I don't know that I would qualify it as painful. It was more of it was like cleaning out your closet. So what I wanted to do for the readers, the book is about the life cycle of fame and from a sociological angle. So what it's like on the inside of this life cycle, it begins, it levels off, and then it descends. Some people, they just stay at the leveled off area, and for others, like myself, it descends. And then also what it's like for my theories and sociological theories on why the public reacts the way it does at different points in that life cycle, and also how did we as a society get to a point where we put celebrity on such a high pedestal. So a lot of people say, like, well, you've written a lot of painful or personal things in here, because I use my own experience as sort of a framework, like as an investigative reporter would, or an empirical sociologist. And to me, it's like, it was more just a flushing out. It's more like I see all these experiences I put in there as items that you would put out for sale at a garage sale. They're not personal anymore. I've processed them, I'm done with them, and like I said, they only serve as a framework for the book, because the book's not about my experience is not unique. My experience with fame, my experience is many other people who have gone through this life cycle that can find a lot of commonality in there.
Is fame addictive?
I think what's even more addictive than fame is the idea of it. Fame is something that a lot of people have an idea about that haven't necessarily lived through it or been anywhere near it. And the idea is this. It's almost a return to toddlerhood. If you had a happy toddler experience, when you're a toddler, other people pay your bills. Everything you do is applauded. You're taken care of. You never have to worry about getting a ride anywhere or where you're going to go to school when you start pre-K. I mean, you're not thinking about any of these things, and you're adored. It's a very low bar of accomplishment that's applauded. And in the same way, people have an idea about fame that is similar to that. You get a lot of money. This is the idea, right? You get a lot of money for not doing much. Everybody loves you. Everything you do is going to be awarded. Other people schedule your travel. You have handlers, etc. And that's not what the experience is really like. Pieces of that may be true. But like somebody who's single who wants to believe that marriage is really wonderful, they know a few things about somebody's married couple's life, and the rest of it they kick out because it doesn't match the picture that they have of it. And that's what a lot of people have done about fame.
Well, Justine Bateman, you talk to a lot of people in this book, and you share your experiences. Do you think yours is a typical Hollywood story in that sense about fame? Is there such a thing?
Well, yes. My experiences with fame are not unique to me. A lot of the people that I spoke to. There were a lot of things that they said in common about the experience. And when I was doing the academic version that I say in the book that I abandoned for this style, which is more stream of consciousness, I did have them grouped together. There were a lot of the comments they had in common. I had grouped together, so there was plenty of that confirmation. Yeah.
You have a fame thermometer.
A fame thermometer. Yeah, the fame thermometer is most events when you are amongst other famous people, because now you're being seen relative to them, or your level of fame is seen relative to theirs. If you're in a room of people that have never done anything in the entertainment business, you're the most famous person in the room. So your temperature's not really being taken because what's being compared to it is an absence of fame. But when you're amongst other famous people, yeah, that's when your fame temperature is taken, and the red carpet is one of the most the sharpest temperature takings that can be done. Yeah.
Well, give an example of when your thermometer was at its highest and maybe post. You talk about that in the red carpet.
Well, when one is very famous, there's a lot of attention on that particular person, and it seems to confirm the public's view that all those attributes they've given to the fame experience are true, because they see that person getting a lot of attention. They see that person. They read about that person getting a record deal or getting a lot of money to be in a film or something. And it feeds that pursuit of fame, which now has been democratized with social media. So everybody can sort of get in on it. You know, how many you can try and generate a large following, relatively speaking. Yeah, and I think it's really damaging to us as a society for two reasons. One is being constantly, when one is constantly watched, it fundamentally changes how you relate to yourself and how you relate to others, because you're being watched and judged. And so, you know, like in quantum mechanics, a particle you can't really measure a particle, because once you're observing it, it changes its behavior, and it's something like that. Like our human behavior is something like that. I mean, it's just saying from somebody who was watched from 16, you know, heavily from like say 16 to 39. And I think when people volunteer for that sort of thing with social media, with always monitoring themselves, taking pictures, taking selfies endlessly, and trying to maintain this particular, whatever kind of brand they've decided on, that's very damaging. And then also the quantification of your value. It's not whether or not you took a good picture, but how many likes did it get? How many likes did it get, or how many followers you have, or how many subscribers you have. And I recently talked to some psychologists that specialize in teens, and they say that it is really at a sort of fever pitch right now, with the self-esteem being wholly wrapped up in like an entire day of somebody's mood or somebody's feelings about themselves will be wrapped up in whether or not there were enough likes, and in particular the number of likes they had relative to somebody else's likes and all that sort of thing. So really gone into this quantification of worth, which is a subset of fame, and sort of done it to ourselves, which is really unfortunate.
Author, producer, actress Justine Bateman is our guest here on Book TV. The numbers are on the screen. The topic, fame and celebrity, and what that means in America today. 202-748-8200. If you live in the East and Central time zones, 202-748-8201 for those of you in the Mountain and Pacific time zones. We'll get to your calls in just a minute. Speaking of accomplishments and measuring yourself, one of the things that you write about in your book, Fame, The Hijacking of Reality, is you did a guest spot on Modern Family at one point. At about the same time, you were graduating from UCLA in computer science. And the attention that the two got, completely different.
Yeah, it's really interesting. People are very excited to hear that. You've done something that has been, on TV or in a theater, but yeah, that's that quantification of millions of people were watching it, and so they want to get in on that. That's also part of in sociology. The bandwagon effect. If millions of people were watching it, that they too want to be part of watching it. If millions of people were excited about it, that they too want to be excited about it. And they're not really looking at whether or not they are excited about it. So this is while I was getting my computer science degree at UCLA. And and now I'm writing and directing and producing and doing a film this August, and now I'm so squarely behind the scenes. It's interesting. It's the most interesting reflections I've gotten from readers have been from those who say how much they related to bits of the book, though they're not in the entertainment business at all. Like there was a blind woman that told me that she really related to the chapter that talks about being treated as not a person. She said, because I too, when I'm out, people treat me like I'm not a person because I just happen to be blind. And then another from a career military, not executive,
Officer?
Officer, thank you. A career military officer had recently, highly decorated, had recently retired, and said he really related to having to shift from being in an environment where everybody knows. It seems clear what your value is, and in all your in the way all the other people are relating to you, and yet now he's in this squarely in the civilian space where either none of that's known about or none of that is applied, and how you have to adjust your ego, and I mean that in a good sense, not in an inflated sense, but also your self-esteem, your identity, everything, and your humility too. In this, how do you relate to other people? How do they relate to you? You have to do a complete shift on everything.
Well, one of the things that you pointed out here that I found interesting was the fragmentation that we have in today's media world. When you were doing Family Ties, 26 million people a week were watching you. 26, I don't think that many people watch network TV in a week now, do they?
It's funny, yeah. Back in the 80s and into the 90s, you had very concentrated audiences for film and TV, and frankly for music too. You had concentrated hubs of listening for sure. I mean, you had to go buy a record, you had to go to a record store and buy a record. Music went into the digital space earlier than the rest of it. But yeah, now that there's so many different ways to consume entertainment, yes, you could find an entire season of a show that cumulatively has reached 26 million people versus on average, a top-rated show back then.
Why did we care as the American public? Why did we care who you were?
Back then?
Anytime. Why do we care?
I don't know. It's a good question.
What's the?
That's a good question. I mean, there are certain theories on any particular performer. It could be just. I mean, I think the most genuine connection is that you have a connection with the work that they've done. With particularly musicians, I think music can really weave into your life at really important points. And so then you ascribe a connection with that artist, of course. And so that's in the most genuine way. But then most of my book is about this very, very strange excitement, nervous excitement about just being around anybody who is famous. You may not even necessarily like their work, but the way a fan or the public's or anybody, I mean, the way their whole system sort of shifts because they're in the presence of somebody that other people find very famous, and who they know is very famous. And that's why I began writing the book. It was about wanting to look at that ephemeral quality that sort of washes into a room. I mean, if Brad Pitt started walking by here, like this interview would stop or pause, and everybody around here would change as well. Everybody would change. And a lot of people will divest themselves of their own identities when they're standing in front of them and not be themselves at all. And then afterwards ask themselves, what just happened to me? Like, why did I start behaving like that? Why was I acting like that? So that's what I examine in the book, And
is it easy to get lost in fame? Especially when you're 16 years old.
Well, the thing about fame is it's, I talk about imposed realities. So fame's an imposed, your real reality is how you truly see yourself, how you really see others, where you live, what gender you are, your height, your weight, what job you have, who your family members are, all that is your reality. And if any one of those things were to change, it's can be very disruptive in somebody's life, really traumatic even. So fame is one of those elements for people that are really become very famous. It's an imposed reality. Other people are saying you're famous, and you can't really escape it. So you adjust to it. And you try to hold inside how you really do feel about yourself. But sometimes it becomes inescapable to assess yourself the same way everyone else is. Because after all, that's how we build our reality when we're young and we get older and older. We learn like what things are acceptable in this particular society or not. People treat me this way when I act like this, and they treat me that way when I act like that, and so I'll adjust to how I want, I'll adjust my behavior according to how I want to be treated. It doesn't happen in a vacuum. I don't believe you can really discover who you are if you just in a closet your entire life. So can you become lost in it? It's more a matter of, it just becomes your reality. It's like, can you become lost in the idea that you live, that if you live in Los Angeles, that you live in Los Angeles? And people would say, I don't know what you mean, like, I just live here. I'm not lost in it, it's just reality. So for fame, it's just a reality that you try to manage. So the more interesting thing to me is when it starts to slip away. How are you managing that? Because now something has been jerked out of your reality in the same way if your house burnt down, or you had a spouse that died, or your parents got divorced, or something that was a big shift in your reality that affects everything. And that's what happens when fame fades from a very small sector of the population. When fame, like I was saying, that career military officer, when he retired and no longer had that reality to live in, it's an adjustment that not that many people are going to sympathize with or understand. But I think when people think of it in that way, that there are lots of realities in people's lives that sometimes shift and change, and you have to adjust to it, and it affects your self-esteem and your own identity, I think people can really, that's why the way I try to put it in the book, so other people can really relate to just the shifting of realities and imposed reality, like people telling you who you are versus who you really are. Yeah.
Let's hear from our callers.
Great.
Let's begin with Dave, who's calling just from Irvine, California, about 40 miles from where we're sitting right now. Go ahead, Dave.
Hi, Justin. My name's Dave Stoffer, and it seems to me it's kind of like the celebrity, that it would be like carrying a mask, kind of a golden magical mask, that the reason you are a celebrity is that there are other people that carry that mask, of you, with them, and then when they see you in person, they expect, you to have that mask on, only much more powerfully, I suppose, because they're meeting you in person.
You know what, Dave? We're going to leave it there because Justine Bateman, you write extensively about exactly what he just said.
Yeah, Dave, that's a great point. In the book, I talk about that they're spraying something on you. They're sort of ensconcing you, or they're putting you in sort of a cocoon, and that's all they're going to look at. And you're inside, as the famous person, saying like, God, can't they see me? Can't they see me? I mean, I'm behaving. I'm being true to myself. I'm behaving the way I really am. But there's almost a refusal in seeing that. Because they want to see, oftentimes they want to see the facade. They don't want it to be true that you're just a real person. And in fact, when a famous person does do everyday things, it's not just dismissed. It's actually, photos are taken of that and put in, I don't know if it's People or Us magazine, there's an entire section of They're Just Like Us, as if it's crazy idea that somebody would be, eat a snack or go to the restroom or go to the grocery store or something like that. And I think it's because in my book I talk about people wanting it to be true, that there is a golden ticket to something. And I feel like for a lot of people it makes their lives better to imagine that there's a way out of whatever it is they're currently experiencing. For some people it's the idea of heaven being whatever they want to think of it in their minds, because none of us have actually been there and come back and said this is what it's like. But fame is like that as well. They want to see that mass. So that's a very good observation that you made.
Two things from your book to relate to Dave. You found yourself being very polite often in society or out in the public, and the elevator story.
Yes, it ties into being spoken of while you're standing in quite close proximity to people, being spoken of as if you're not there. That happened a lot back then, yeah.
Two people having a conversation. Oh, her hair looks darker on TV, and you're standing there listening to them.
It's true, yeah, because you're not real. And I think it's necessary that the public often see those who are famous as not real. Otherwise, it shatters this thing that we were just talking about that Dave brought up. It shatters this idea that there is another plane of existence that's possible while we're still alive, wherein you get to relive your toddlerhood. Bills are paid for, everybody loves you, etc. And so I feel like a lot of people like to believe that is available. The sort of lottery ticket thing.
Anthony, Covina, California. Hi, Anthony. I do not think Anthony is with us, so we're going to go to Oklahoma. And this is Bob, and Bob is calling from Oklahoma. You're on with author Justine Bateman. Go ahead, Bob.
Hello, Justine. Good to see you again.
Hi.
You're still working and writing. Yeah. Hey, I just wanted to touch on you mentioned humility. I do a lot of writing, and I'm noticing we live in a society today, I would say, full of a yuppie class that's got a president at the head of the helm there that has no humility, no capacity for humility. I feel like my entire life, I'm about to turn 60, and I've seen a lot of things in my life, and I've seen a lot of a lack of humility, and this sort of predisposed angst about what you're talking about there, about continuing the unreality. Like their
All right,
belief.
Bob, let's let Justine Bateman riff on that a little bit.
That's a good, his name was Bob. Thanks, Bob. Yeah, personally, I found that to be greatly true as well. And I think, and this is something I touch on in the book, I think it has a lot to do with a reality show mentality, wherein I believe everyone's got a basket of skills and talents, but it's a matter of whether or not people are going to develop those skills and talents. And I think for a lot of reality show, I think the reality show culture has fostered a large portion of our population, has fostered an idea that you should get paid for just being there. You don't need to develop any skills or talents. And in fact, behaving badly, like not having integrity, not having humility, being greedy, being bossy, being rude is going to be rewarded financially with finance and also with attention. And unfortunately, that has been proved out. So it's an unfortunate confirmation. I mean, you mentioned, political offices are maintained by those who are not behaving with integrity and humility. We have, like I said, a lot of the reality show contestants behaving with an absence of integrity and humility. And it's a shame that it's become so widespread, and I think it's really influenced a whole younger generation of in the workforce. We've gotten away from the valuing hard work and being a person of integrity and other qualities that we put in the same category there. And I think a lot of it has to do with this almost panicky desire for celebrity. Because a lot of times, and I say this in the book, your individual basket of skills and talents, not you specifically, Bob, but for anybody, may not be something that would make one famous. And so I think too many of us are pushing aside our own basket of skills and talents in exchange for an opportunity to become famous for nothing, really. Because our society has put it on such a high pedestal. And it can only really be done on an individual level, to make someone of integrity who works hard and all this, put that on a higher pedestal, to value that more. I can't hope to influence an entire society, but I know that I can. That's how I see things, and I have a lot more respect for people who are working hard and have integrity than for those who have set that aside in order to just get attention.
Let's hear from Carolyn in Virginia Beach, Virginia. Hi, Carolyn.
Hi, Justine. My name is Carolyn Christopher, and I'm way out here on the East Coast. Thank you for taking time to answer my question. There are so many outlets now, cable channels, Amazon TV, YouTube, etc. Are we seeing better talents being discovered or too much mediocre talent? And are people really just obsessed with becoming a star and wanting that 15 minutes of fame, so to speak? Is it
Thank
better
you, Carolyn. You've addressed that a little bit, but...
Yeah, Carolyn, that's a great point, and I think you'll really like the book, because I do go into... there's a great writer, Brackenridge, who had a good angle on the idea that those with mediocre talent sometimes rise up because the public can feel like a creator of that fame, because they can point to it and say, well, we did that. That wasn't because that person was talented or anything, like we did that. Whereas if somebody's truly talented, the public what are they going to get credit for just noticing that somebody was a great actor or a great violinist or something? So that's one thing that you'll see in the book. And also another thing I go into in the book is that because there's so many outlets, like we were mentioning earlier, the appetite for a larger quantity of famous people is at its height. There must be enough famous people to fill all these hours, all these channels, all these websites. And so, do we have more talented people now than we did 100 years ago? I don't really think so. And to your point, a lot will just get brought in because you just need to sort of fill the shelves with goods.
Here's the book. It's called Fame, The Hijacking of Reality. The author is Justine Bateman. Thanks for being on Book TV.
Thank you. And I want to tell the callers, thank you. Your questions were really intelligent, and I appreciate that. I understand this is not a moderated forum, and you guys really showed up with some great questions.
We operate without a net here at Book TV and C-SPAN.